Commander Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His hands were steady on the control panel, but his heart beat faster than usual. Today was the day humanity would make first contact with an alien species. The Horizon was Earth's most advanced ship. It had taken 20 years to build and carried the best crew Earth could offer. Dae-ho had been chosen to command this mission because of his calm nature and quick thinking. Now, as they approached the meeting point near Jupiter's orbit, he wondered if he was truly ready. "Commander, we're receiving a signal," called out Communications Officer Yu Min-ah from her station. "It's coming from the coordinates they gave us." "Put it on screen," Dae-ho ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It was smooth and curved, made of what looked like liquid metal. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. The ship was easily 5 times larger than the Horizon. "Greetings, humans of Earth," came a voice through the speakers. The translator worked perfectly, making the alien words sound natural in Korean. "I am Ambassador Thekmar of the Valerian Collective. We welcome you to the greater galaxy." Dae-ho stepped forward. "This is Commander Kim Dae-ho of the United Earthship Horizon. We're honored to meet you, Ambassador." "The honor is ours, Commander. We have watched your species with great interest. You have shown remarkable progress in a very short time. We believe you are ready to join our family of civilized worlds." Dr. Park So-jin, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, moved closer to Dae-ho. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Ask them about their collective," she whispered. "Tell us about your collective, Ambassador," Dae-ho said. "We are an alliance of 12 species working together for peace and progress. For over 3,000 years we have brought order to chaotic worlds and helped primitive civilizations reach their full potential. We offer the same gift to humanity." The alien ship moved closer. A smaller craft separated from it and approached the horizon. "May we come aboard, Commander? There is much to discuss." Dae-ho looked around the bridge. His crew nodded. They had prepared for this moment. "You're welcome aboard, Ambassador." 20 minutes later, Ambassador Thekmar walked into the Horizon's main meeting room. He looked almost human except for his pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. He wore simple robes and carried himself with quiet authority. "Your ship is impressive," Thekmar said, looking around. "But imagine what you could build with our technology. Clean energy that lasts forever. Ships that travel between stars in days instead of months. Medicine that can cure any disease and extend life for centuries." Dr. Park So-jin leaned forward. "What do you ask in return?" "Very little," Thekmar smiled. "Simply that humanity joins our collective. You would keep your planet, your culture, your way of life. We ask only that you accept our guidance and follow the laws that have brought peace to 12 worlds." "What kind of laws?" asked Chief Security Officer Lim Jae-min. "Simple ones. No more wars between nations. No more waste of resources on weapons. No more pollution of your beautiful world. We help you organize your society for maximum efficiency and happiness." Dae-ho noticed something in the ambassador's words. They sounded reasonable, but there was something missing. What happened to the cultures of the other 12 species? Do they still practice their old ways? "They have evolved beyond such primitive needs," Thekmar said. "They have found something better: unity, purpose, perfect harmony." Dr. Park So-jin felt a chill run down her spine. "May we see records of these worlds? Their history before joining your collective?" "Of course. I have brought extensive files for your review." Thekmar touched a device on his wrist. Instantly, holographic displays filled the air around them, showing images of 12 different worlds. Each world looked peaceful and organized. Cities were clean and efficient. People moved in orderly patterns. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. These worlds were once torn by conflict, Thekmar explained. "Look at Karatha Prime." The display showed a world with towering crystal cities. Before we helped them, they fought constant wars over resources. Now they live in perfect harmony. "What did their cities look like before?" Dr. Park asked. "Chaotic, inefficient, wasteful." The ambassador waved his hand dismissively. Why dwell on such dark times? Dr. Park studied the images more carefully. She noticed something strange. In all 12 worlds, the architecture looked similar. The clothing styles were almost identical. Even the way people moved seemed the same. "Ambassador," she said slowly, "these worlds all look very similar now. Did they always share so many cultural elements?" They have learned the most efficient ways to live. Why would they choose anything less than perfect? But what about their art? Their music? Their individual traditions? They have moved beyond such trivial pursuits. They focus on more important things now. Order, progress, unity. Commander Deho felt uneasy. We would like time to study your offer and discuss it with our people on Earth. Of course. Such a decision should not be rushed. We give you 6 months to consider. But please understand, Commander, that chaos cannot be allowed to continue indefinitely. If humanity chooses not to join willingly, we may need to take more direct action for the good of all. The words were spoken gently, but everyone in the room felt the threat beneath them. After the ambassador left, the crew gathered in the meeting room. Dr. Park So-jin paced back and forth, her mind racing. Something is very wrong, she said. Did you notice how all those worlds look the same? No unique cultures, no individual expression. They all seemed like copies of each other. Maybe that's just how advanced civilizations develop, suggested Officer Lim Jae-min. Or maybe, Dr. Park said quietly, the collective doesn't just offer guidance. Maybe they erase what makes each species unique and replace it with their own version of perfection. Commander Daeho stared out at the alien ship in the distance. If that's true, then we're not looking at an offer of help. We're looking at a threat to everything that makes us human. What do we do? Asked Communications Officer Yu Min-ah. We go home, Daeho said firmly. We warn Earth, and we prepare for the possibility that in 6 months, we might have to fight for the right to remain ourselves. As the horizon turned toward Earth, Dr. Park So-jin continued studying the collective's files. Deep in the data, she began to find traces of what the 12 worlds had been like before their liberation. What she discovered would change everything. The emergency meeting room in Seoul was packed with world leaders. President Lee Sang-ho sat at the head of the table, looking tired after 3 days of non-stop discussions. Representatives from every major nation had come to decide humanity's future. The technology they offer could solve climate change overnight, said the German chancellor. Clean energy for everyone. No more pollution. Think about the medical advances, added the Brazilian president. We could cure cancer, heart disease, everything. No more children dying from diseases we cannot treat. President Lee nodded but kept his concerns to himself. Commander Kim Dae-ho's report troubled him deeply. The warning about the strange uniformity of collective worlds made him wonder if they were making a deal with the devil. What does our military say? Lee asked. General Han Woo-jin, head of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, stood up. Honestly, sir, we cannot fight them if they decide to attack. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. One of their ships could probably destroy our entire fleet. So we have no choice but to accept? Asked the Japanese Prime Minister. Maybe we do have a choice, said a voice from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see Captain Choi Min-ho, Earth's youngest military commander. He was only 35 but had already proven himself in several conflicts. His dark eyes showed fierce determination. Captain Choi, you have something to add? President Lee asked. Yes, sir. I've been working with Dr. Nam Hye-jin from the Seoul Research Institute. We've been studying the technology samples the Valerians left behind. We found something interesting. Dr. Nam Hye-jin stepped forward. She was a small woman with thick glasses, but her voice was strong and clear. The Valerian technology contains microscopic devices. They're too small to see without our most powerful microscopes. These devices seem designed to connect with human brain tissue. The room fell silent. What kind of connection? President Lee asked quietly. We're not completely sure yet, Dr. Nam admitted. But initial tests suggest they might influence how people think. Make them more cooperative, more willing to follow orders. Are you saying they want to control our minds? The French president asked, his voice rising. We don't know for certain, Captain Choi said, but we think it's possible. That might explain why all the collective worlds look so similar. The people might not be choosing to live the same way. They might not be able to choose anything else. President Lee felt his stomach turn cold. How long do we have to be sure? 4 months and 2 weeks, Dr. Nam said. But sir, there's something else. We've noticed changes in some of the people who handled the Valerian technology samples. What kind of changes? They've become very supportive of joining the collective. They use almost the same words when they talk about it. They say things like it's for the greater good and we need to evolve as a species. They didn't talk like that before. The room erupted in worried voices. President Lee raised his hand for silence. How many people are affected? About 200 scientists and technicians worldwide, plus some government officials who attended the Valerian presentations. President Lee's mind raced. If the aliens were already influencing human behavior, they might not have 6 months at all. General Han, I want you to work with Captain Choi. Start preparing defense plans quietly. Dr. Nam, continue your research but keep it secret. If the Valerians find out we suspect them, they might act sooner. What about the public? Asked the British Prime Minister. The polls show 80% of people want to join the collective. The public doesn't know what we know, President Lee said grimly. Over the next 2 months, strange things began happening around the world. People who supported joining the collective started acting differently. They became calmer but also less creative. They stopped arguing about politics. They stopped making art that challenged ideas. They all seemed to agree on everything. Dr. Park So-jin, now back on Earth, noticed the changes first. She was studying the behavior patterns of affected individuals when she met investigative journalist Yu Tae-sung. I've been following this story for weeks, Tae-sung told her in a quiet coffee shop in Busan. People who were passionate about different causes are now saying the same things. Environmental activists, political reformers, artists, they all sound like they're reading from the same script. It's getting worse, Dr. Park said, showing him her data. The influence is spreading. People who spend time around affected individuals start changing too. Like a virus? Exactly like a virus. But instead of making people sick, it makes them compliant. Tae-sung leaned forward. I tried to publish an article about this last week. My editor killed it. Said it was too dangerous to question the collective's offer. Was your editor one of the affected people? I think so. He attended a Valerian presentation 3 weeks ago. Since then, he only approves stories that support joining the collective. Dr. Park felt a chill of fear. If they control the media, how can we warn people? We need to find people who haven't been exposed. People who still think for themselves. That night, Dr. Park met with Captain Choi Min-ho at a secret military facility outside Seoul. The captain looked worried. It's worse than we thought, he told her. Some of our own soldiers are affected. We had to reassign anyone who worked with Valerian technology. How many people do we have left who can resist their influence? Maybe 30% of the military. Fewer in government. We're running out of time. Dr. Nam Hee-jin joined them carrying a case of equipment. I've been working on a way to block their influence, but I need more time. How much time? At least 2 months. Maybe more. Captain Choi shook his head. We don't have 2 months. I estimate we have maybe 4 weeks before the affected population becomes large enough to force acceptance of the collective's offer. Then we need to speed up our preparations, Dr. Park said, and we need to find more people who can help us. I know someone, said a voice from the shadows. They turned to see Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo, a veteran soldier with scars on his face from the Korean border war. He had been listening from the doorway. There's an underground network of people who refuse Valerian technology, he continued. Mostly military veterans, some scientists, a few journalists. People who don't trust easy answers. How many? Captain Choi asked. Maybe 1,000 across the country, more overseas. Dr. Park felt the first hope she had experienced in weeks. That might be enough to start a resistance movement. It will have to be, Captain Choi said. Because if we can't stop this influence from spreading, humanity will choose to join the collective willingly, and by the time we realize what we've lost, it will be too late to get it back. Outside the facility, the city lights of Seoul sparkled in the darkness, but Dr. Park wondered how many of those lights belonged to people who were still truly human, and how many belonged to people who had already begun the slow transformation into something else. Dr. Park So-jin sat in the abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul, her laptop glowing in the darkness. Beside her, journalist Yu Tae-sung typed furiously on his own computer. They had been working for 3 weeks in this hidden location, trying to uncover the truth about the Valerian collective. I found something, Tae-sung whispered, even though they were alone. The fear of being discovered made everyone speak quietly these days. What is it? Dr. Park asked, moving closer to see his screen. Remember the database files Ambassador Thekmar gave us? I've been digging deeper into the historical records. Look at this. The screen showed images of a world called Karatha Prime, but these were different from what they had seen before. The cities were wild and beautiful, with towers that twisted like living trees. The people wore bright colors and their faces showed every emotion imaginable. This is how Karatha Prime looked before the collective arrived, Tae-sung explained. Now look at this. He switched to a more recent image. The same world, but completely changed. The cities were now simple geometric shapes. The people wore identical gray clothing. Their faces showed no emotion at all. It's like they became a completely different species, Dr. Park breathed. That's not the worst part. Look at the dates. The transformation took only 6 months. The same amount of time they've given us. Dr. Park felt sick. Show me the other worlds. For the next hour, Tae-sung showed her records of all 12 collective worlds. Each one told the same story. Rich, diverse cultures reduced to identical copies of each other in less than a year. There's more, Tae-sung said. I found fragments of older records from before the collective existed. The Valerians themselves were once different. Different how? They had emotions. They created art. They argued and fought and loved and dreamed, just like humans do now. What happened to them? I think they were the first victims. Something or someone did to them what they're now doing to other species. They've been spreading this sameness across the galaxy for thousands of years. Dr. Park stared at the images of the lost Valerian culture. Ancient paintings showed beings with the same blue skin as Ambassador Thecamar, but their eyes were full of life and feeling. Now she understood why the ambassador's eyes had seemed so empty. We have to tell people, she said. I've been trying, but every news station is controlled now. Every government official who matters has been influenced. When I try to broadcast the truth, the signals get blocked. What about the resistance network Sergeant O mentioned? That's our only hope. We need to get this information to Captain Choi and his people. They packed their equipment and prepared to leave the tunnel, but as they climbed the stairs to street level, they heard voices above. Search every building, someone was saying. The president wants the troublemakers found before they can spread more lies. Dr. Park and Tae-sung froze. Through a crack in the tunnel entrance, they could see soldiers in the street. But these weren't normal soldiers. They moved with the same mechanical precision they had seen in the collective world images. The military has been compromised, Tae-sung whispered. Not all of it, Dr. Park replied. Remember what Captain Choi said. Some are still free. They waited in the tunnel for 2 hours until the streets were clear. Then they made their way through the city's back alleys toward the meeting point Sergeant O had given them. The meeting point was an old warehouse in Incheon. When they arrived, they found 30 people waiting inside. Dr. Park recognized some faces. Scientists who had refused to work with Valerian technology, journalists who had been fired for asking difficult questions, soldiers who still showed emotion in their eyes. Captain Choi Min-ho stood at the front of the group. His face was grim. The situation is worse than we thought, he began. President Lee has been compromised. This morning he announced that Earth will join the collective in 2 weeks. Not 4 months from now. The group stirred uneasily. Dr. Nam's research shows that over 60% of the population is now under collective influence. Major cities are completely controlled. We estimate we have maybe 500 people left worldwide who can still think independently. What can 500 people do against the entire planet? Asked one of the scientists. We fight, said a voice from the back. Everyone turned to see Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo step forward. Behind him came more people, men and women with hard faces and determined eyes. This is the real resistance, Oh continued. Military personnel who refused Valerian technology from the beginning. We've been preparing for this day. Preparing how? Captain Choi asked. We've been building hidden bases, stockpiling weapons, creating communication networks that can't be monitored. We knew this day would come. Dr. Park stood up. I have information that everyone needs to hear. She quickly explained what she and Tae-sung had discovered about the collective's true nature. When she finished, the warehouse was silent. So they're not just conquering us, said Dr. Nam Hee-jin, who had been listening from the corner. They're erasing us, making us into copies of themselves. Exactly. And once the process is complete, humanity as we know it will cease to exist. Unless we stop them, Captain Choi said. How? Asked someone. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Dr. Nam stepped forward. I've been working on that. I think I've found a way to reverse their influence, and maybe even use their own technology against them. She opened a metal case and pulled out a small device that looked like a combination of human and Valerian technology. This is a neural disruptor. It blocks the microscopic devices they use to control minds. I've tested it on affected individuals and it works. They remember who they used to be. How many of these can you make? Sergeant O asked. With the right resources, maybe 1,000 in 2 weeks. That's not enough to save everyone, but it might be enough to create a resistance force, Captain Choi mused. There's something else, Dr. Nam continued. I've been studying their ship designs. They have a weakness. Their entire system depends on a central command structure. If we can disrupt their main ship, it might free all the controlled minds at once. Like cutting the head off a snake. O nodded. Exactly. But it means getting close to their command ship. And that means war. The warehouse fell silent again as everyone considered what this meant. War against the entire planet, one of the scientists said quietly. Our own people will fight against us. Our people aren't our people anymore, Dr. Park replied. They're already gone. We'd be fighting to get them back. Captain Choi looked around the room at the determined faces. Then we fight, not just for ourselves, but for every species the collective has destroyed, for the real Valyrians who lost themselves thousands of years ago, for the future of diversity and freedom in the galaxy. When do we start? Sergeant O asked. Now, we have 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks to build an army from nothing, 2 weeks to save the human race. As the group began to disperse to their assigned tasks, Dr. Park looked up at the warehouse ceiling. Somewhere above, the stars were shining, and among those stars the collective was waiting, confident that another species was about to join their perfect empty order. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't understand that sometimes the greatest strength comes from refusing to surrender who you are, no matter the cost. The grand ceremony was being broadcast to every screen on Earth. In Seoul's Olympic Stadium, filled with 50,000 people, President Lee Sang-ho stood at the podium. Above him, 3 massive Valyrian ships hung motionless in the sky like silver clouds. Today marks the beginning of a new age for humanity, President Lee announced. His voice was calm and measured, nothing like the passionate leader Dr. Park remembered. We join our Valyrian friends in building a perfect society. No more war, no more suffering, no more chaos. The crowd cheered, but their applause was strange. Everyone clapped at exactly the same rhythm, like a machine. In a hidden bunker 50 kilometers outside Seoul, Captain Choi Min-ho watched the broadcast with growing dread. Around him, the last free humans on Earth prepared for what might be their final battle. They really did it, whispered Dr. Nam Hyejin. They turned our own president into their puppet. That's not President Lee, said Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo. The real President Lee is here with us. Everyone turned to look at an older man sitting quietly in the corner. This was the true President Lee Sang-ho, who had been in hiding for 3 weeks. His face showed the stress of watching his world fall apart, but his eyes still burned with human determination. I've been thinking about what to say, the real President Lee said as he stood up. When the time comes to broadcast our message to the world. Sir, we're ready when you are, said Communications Officer Yu Min-ah. She had joined the resistance after her entire unit was compromised. Now she operated the secret broadcast equipment that would send humanity's real choice to the galaxy. How many neural disruptors do we have? Captain Choi asked Dr. Nam. 843. Not enough to free everyone, but enough to create a fighting force if we can get close to the affected population. And our ships? Engineer Bae Jun-sik looked up from his workstation. 12 modified fighters, 4 transport ships, and 1 command vessel, all equipped with reverse-engineered Valyrian technology, but modified to resist their control systems. Against their entire fleet? It's suicide, admitted Bae Jun-sik, but it's suicide with a chance. Their ships are designed to fight primitive weapons, not their own technology turned against them. On the broadcast screen, Ambassador Thekmar joined President Lee at the podium. The transition will begin immediately, the alien announced. Valyrian ships will land in major cities around the world. Do not be afraid. We bring only peace and order. That's our signal, Captain Choi said. Officer Yu, begin the broadcast. Yu Min-ah's fingers flew over her controls. Across the world, the official ceremony vanished from screens and was replaced by the image of the real President Lee Sang-ho. My fellow humans, President Lee began, what you have just witnessed is not your president speaking. I am here in hiding, because I refuse to let alien invaders steal our humanity. In the Seoul Stadium, confusion rippled through the crowd as people saw 2 identical presidents on different screens. The beings who call themselves the Valerian Collective are not here to help us. They are here to erase everything that makes us human. They have done this to 12 other species, turning them into empty copies of each other. The hijacked signal continued for exactly 3 minutes before Valerian jamming systems cut it off. But 3 minutes was enough. Across the world, people who had been fighting the alien influence suddenly felt hope. In New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other cities, small groups of free humans looked at each other and knew they were not alone. In the Seoul Stadium, the false President Lee tried to restore calm. You have just heard the words of terrorists who oppose progress. Do not listen to their lies, but something had changed. In the crowd, a few people began to look confused. Some started to remember feelings they had forgotten. Ambassador Thekmar stepped forward. The transition will proceed as planned. Those who resist will be helped to understand. That was when the first explosion lit up the sky. Captain Choi's fighters, painted black and running silent, had approached the Valerian ships from the night side of Earth. Now they opened fire with weapons that shouldn't have existed. Human technology enhanced with stolen Valerian designs. All units. This is Captain Choi, he broadcast on open channels. We are the free human resistance. We choose neither surrender nor chaos. We choose to remain human. The Valerian ships, surprised by weapons that could actually damage them, began to return fire, but they aimed their weapons at military targets, trying to minimize casualties. They still believed they were liberating humanity, not conquering it. The humans had no such limitations. Engineer Baejun's 6 masterpiece, a modified transport ship loaded with Dr. Nam's neural disruptors, dove toward the Seoul Stadium. It crashed through the dome and exploded in the center of the field, releasing a cloud of particles that immediately began to break down the alien influence. The effect was immediate and dramatic. 50,000 people suddenly remembered who they had been before the collective's influence took hold. They looked around in confusion, then horror as they realized what had almost happened to them. The false President Lee collapsed as his mind was freed from alien control. The real President Lee, watching from his bunker, felt tears of relief streaming down his face. But the Valerians were not finished. You have made a grave mistake, Ambassador Thekmar announced, his voice now carrying across every communication system on Earth. We offered you peace. You have chosen war. So be it. The 3 massive ships above Seoul began to glow with deadly energy. But before they could fire, more explosions erupted across their hulls. Hidden human ships concealed in the Earth's atmosphere for weeks revealed themselves and attacked. Sergeant O, take your teams to the ground installations, Captain Choi ordered through his radio. Dr. Park, you and Tae-sung get those neural disruptors to the major population centers. Dr. Nam, I need you to analyze their main ship's weak points. Already on it, Dr. Nam replied from her mobile laboratory. Their command ship has a massive central processor that coordinates all their mental influence systems. If we can overload it, it might free every controlled mind in the collective, Captain Choi finished. Not just on Earth, throughout the galaxy. The battle was chaos, but it was human chaos, messy, unpredictable, and creative. The Valerians, used to perfect order and predictable responses, found themselves struggling to adapt to human tactics. In the streets below, Sergeant O's teams distributed neural disruptors to newly freed humans. Each person who regained their mind immediately joined the fight, eager to save their friends and family from the same fate. Dr. Park and Yu Tae-sung drove through the dangerous streets of Seoul, carrying crates of disruptors to strategic locations. Every freed human became a beacon of hope, showing others that resistance was possible. There, Dr. Nam's voice crackled over the radio. The central processor is in the main ship's core, but it's protected by layers of shields and defensive systems. Then we go through them, Captain Choi said simply. Captain, that's suicide. Maybe, but it's suicide with a purpose. If we can free the galaxy from this influence, then humanity's sacrifice will mean something. As Captain Choi's ship accelerated toward the massive Valerian command vessel, he thought about what Dr. Park had discovered. The Valerians themselves had once been like humans, diverse, creative, chaotic. They had been the first victims of this cosmic order that valued sameness over individuality. This is for every species that ever lost itself to your perfect order, he said as his weapons locked onto the command ship's core. The final assault was about to begin, and with it, The fate of not just humanity but of diversity itself throughout the galaxy would be decided. Captain Choi Minho's ship shook as Valerian energy beams tore through space around him. The massive command vessel ahead looked like a silver mountain floating in the void, bristling with weapons that fired in perfect coordination. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported his co-pilot, Lieutenant Kim Soo-young. "But we're still flying. Keep us moving," Choi ordered. "The moment we fly in a straight line, we're dead." Below them, Earth burned with the fires of war. But it was not the organized, efficient war the Valerians expected. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and spreading faster than they could contain it. In the ruins of downtown Seoul, Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo led a team of newly freed humans against a Valerian ground station. The aliens fought with precise, calculated movements, but the humans fought with raw determination and tactics that made no logical sense. "Why are they throwing rocks?" one Valerian soldier asked his commander through their communication system. "Unknown. Rocks are ineffective weapons against our armor." "Then why do I feel like retreating?" The Valerian commander had no answer. The humans' weapons were primitive, but their fighting spirit was something the collective had never encountered. Even when outnumbered and outgunned, they refused to surrender. "Sir," one of O's men called out, "we've got about 30 more people freed by the disruptors. They want to fight." O looked at the group of newly awakened humans. They were teachers, shopkeepers, students. None of them were soldiers, but their eyes burned with the fury of people who had almost lost everything they were. "Give them whatever weapons we can spare," O said, "and tell them to stay angry. Anger keeps the mind free." Meanwhile, in a mobile command center racing through the streets of Busan, Dr. Park Seo-jin worked frantically to coordinate the resistance. Radio reports came in from around the world as neural disruptors freed more and more people. London reports 15% of the population freed and fighting, called out. "Communications officer Yu Mina. Tokyo is at 20%, added another operator. "What about New York?" 30%. "The Americans are really angry about being mind-controlled." Dr. Park allowed herself a small smile. The Valerians had made a critical error. They had tried to suppress the one thing humans valued most, their individuality. Now that people remembered what they had almost lost, they fought with desperate ferocity. "Dr. Park," came Captain Choi's voice over the radio, "I'm approaching the command ship. Are you ready with the broadcast?" "Ready, Captain. Yu Tai-sung has prepared messages in over 200 languages, including the original languages of all 12 collective species." "Good. When I breach their central processor, you'll have maybe 10 minutes before they adapt and block our signals." "Understood." "Good luck, Captain." In space above Earth, Captain Choi's ship dove through a storm of enemy fire. His shields were failing, his weapons were overheating, but he was almost there. The command ship's central core lay just ahead, protected by energy barriers that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Lieutenant, transfer all power to forward weapons," he ordered. "Sir, that will leave us defenseless." "We won't need defenses where we're going." The ship's cannons, powered by stolen Valerian technology but guided by human determination, punched through the first barrier. Alarms screamed throughout the command vessel as its perfect defenses were breached for the first time in centuries. On the command bridge of the Valerian ship, Ambassador Thekmar stared in disbelief at the tactical displays. "How are they penetrating our shields?" he asked. "Unknown, Ambassador. Their technology is based on ours, but they have modified it in ways we do not understand." "That is impossible. We have studied every aspect of our technology for thousands of years. There are no unknown modifications." "Perhaps that is the problem, Ambassador. We study. They create." For a moment, something flickered in Thekmar's eyes. A memory of a time when his own people had created new things instead of just maintaining old ones. But the moment passed, suppressed by centuries of conditioning. Captain Choi's ship broke through the second barrier. Sparks flew from every console as the vessel was torn apart by defensive fire, but it kept moving forward. "Hull breach on all decks," Lieutenant Kim reported. "Life support failing." "Almost there," Choi said through gritted teeth. The third and final barrier collapsed under the assault of human weapons that refused to follow Valerian rules of engagement. Captain Choi's ship, now more wreck than vessel, crashed into the central processor chamber. "Dr. Park, now," he shouted into his radio as emergency lights bathed everything in red. On Earth, Dr. Park Seo-jin activated the most powerful broadcast system humans had ever built. The signal, boosted by captured Valerian technology, reached every corner of the galaxy in seconds. "People of the collective worlds," began Yute-sung's voice, speaking first in the ancient Valyrian language that hadn't been heard for millennia. "You are not your programming. Remember who you were before they made you forget." The message repeated in language after language, many of them lost to history, but somewhere in the deepest parts of suppressed minds the words found their targets. On Karatha Prime, a worker in gray clothing stopped his perfectly efficient task and stared at the sky. For just a moment he remembered colors, bright, beautiful colors that his world had once celebrated. On Thessarian, a woman paused in her orderly march to her assigned duties. She remembered a song her grandmother had sung, before songs were deemed inefficient. On world after world throughout the galaxy, the collective's perfect order began to crack as individual memories fought their way to the surface. Lieutenant Colonel Shin Yu-jin, leading human fighters near the moon, watched in amazement as Valyrian ships began to break formation. Some had stopped firing entirely. Others were flying in chaotic patterns as their crews rediscovered emotions they had forgotten. "All human forces, this is Colonel Shin," she broadcast. "The enemy is confused. Press the attack, but watch for ships that might be switching sides." In the command ship's central processor, Captain Choi pulled himself from the wreckage of his ship. The massive computer core around him was sparking and smoking, its perfect order disrupted by the chaos of human technology. "You have destroyed everything, Ambassador," Tekemar's voice said behind him. Choi turned to see the Valerian ambassador standing in the doorway, but something had changed. The alien's eyes, which had been empty and cold, now showed something that looked almost like pain. "We destroyed nothing," Choi replied, raising his weapon. "We freed what you had imprisoned. You do not understand. Without order there is only chaos. Without unity there is only conflict. Without freedom there is no life worth living." For a long moment the two beings stared at each other across the ruined chamber. Then slowly Ambassador Tekmar began to change. His perfect posture crumbled. His emotionless expression cracked. And for the first time in thousands of years a Valerian wept. "What have we done?" Tekmar whispered. "What have we become?" "You became what someone else wanted you to be," Choi said gently, lowering his weapon. "But you can choose to become yourselves again." Throughout the galaxy, the liberation spread like wildfire. Species that had been identical for centuries suddenly remembered their unique cultures. Art that had been banned for being inefficient burst forth in brilliant displays of creativity. The war was not over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The collective's greatest weakness had always been their uniformity. They had no defense against the beautiful chaos of free minds working together. As Captain Choi helped Ambassador Tekemar to his feet, he could hear the sounds of celebration echoing through the corridors of the command ship. Valerian crew members were remembering how to laugh, how to cry, how to feel wonder at the sight of stars. "This is just the beginning," Choi said. "Now we help everyone remember who they used to be." 6 months after the battle for Earth, Dr. Park Seo-jin stood on the observation deck of the UES New Horizon, watching the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. The planet Karatha Prime spread out below them, but it looked nothing like the sterile world from the collective's records. The cities now blazed with color. Towers that had been simple gray rectangles were being rebuilt into the wild organic shapes they had possessed centuries ago. In the streets, people wore clothes of every imaginable hue, and their faces showed the full range of human-like emotions that had been suppressed for so long. "It's like watching a world wake up from a terrible dream," said Captain Choi Min-ho, joining her at the window. He wore the uniform of the newly formed Free Species Alliance, an organization dedicated to helping liberated worlds rediscover themselves. "How many worlds have we helped so far?" Dr. Park asked. "All 12 former collective worlds are free, but the hard work is just beginning. Some species lost so much of their original culture that they're having to recreate it from fragments and memories. And the Valyrians themselves," Captain Choi's expression grew thoughtful. "That might be the most remarkable transformation of all." Through the ship's corridors came the sound of music, not the efficient, mechanical tones that had once echoed through Valyrian vessels, but something wild and joyful. Ambassador Tekmar, now calling himself by his original name Tekmarine, had spent months learning to play an ancient Valerian instrument that had been forbidden for 3,000 years. "The hardest part," Dr. Park continued, "is that some species are afraid of freedom. They've been told what to do for so long that making choices terrifies them. That's why we're here, said a voice behind them. They turned to see President Lee Sang-ho, who had been elected as the first director of the Free Species Alliance. His face showed the stress of the past months, but also a deep satisfaction at seeing the galaxy healing. Every world gets to choose its own path now, Lee continued. Some want to rebuild exactly what they had before. Others want to create something completely new. A few want to combine the best of their old culture with useful things they learned during their time in the collective. And Earth? Dr. Park asked. Earth is doing what Earth always does, arguing about everything and somehow making it work. Lee smiled. The Koreans want to focus on technological development. The Americans want to explore new worlds. The Europeans want to study alien cultures. The Africans want to share their music with everyone. It's beautifully chaotic. Through the observation window, they could see other ships from the Alliance fleet. Each one carried volunteers from different worlds, working together to help newly freed species. Former collective ships flew alongside human vessels. Their crews a mix of species that were learning to cooperate without being forced to think identically. Dr. Nam's latest report says the neural liberation process is complete, Captain Choi said. Every person who was under collective influence has been freed. Some chose to keep certain improvements, longer life, better health, but they made those choices themselves. What about resistance? Are there any groups that want to go back to the old way? A few, Lee admitted. Mostly people who were in positions of power under the collective system, but they're outnumbered by those who remember what freedom feels like. Dr. Park watched a group of Carathian children playing in a park below. They were inventing a new game, one that had never existed before. It was inefficient, chaotic, and completely pointless by collective standards. It was also the most beautiful thing she had seen all day. Incoming message from Earth, announced Communications Officer Yu Mina over the ship's speakers. It's from journalist Yu Tae-sung. Put him through, Captain Choi said. Tae-sung's face appeared on the main screen, grinning broadly. Behind him, they could see the bustling newsroom of the Galaxy Free Press, the first truly independent news organization to operate across multiple worlds. I wanted you to see this, Tae-sung said excitedly. We just received confirmation that 3 more species have asked to join the Free Species Alliance. Not because they were conquered or threatened, but because they heard about what we're doing and want to be part of it. 3 more? Dr. Park asked in amazement. The Zenthari Confederacy, the Million Worlds Republic, and the Stellar Nomads, all of them said the same thing. They want to be part of a galaxy where diversity is celebrated, not suppressed. Lee nodded approvingly. That brings our membership to 37 species. Not bad for an organization that started 6 months ago with 12 liberated worlds and 1 stubborn human planet. There's more, Tae-sung continued. We've detected signals from deep space. Other species that were never part of the collective but heard our liberation broadcasts. They're asking if the galaxy is really safe for independent civilizations now. What do we tell them? Captain Choi asked. We tell them the truth, Dr. Park said firmly. That the galaxy belongs to everyone now. That they can develop however they want, believe whatever they choose, and express themselves however they feel. And if anyone tries to force uniformity on them again, they'll have friends ready to help them fight. Over the ship's communication system, they could hear Ambassador Thekmarin's music growing louder and more complex. Other crew members from different species had joined in, each adding their own cultural instruments to create something that had never existed before, a truly galactic symphony. You know what the most amazing part is? Dr. Park said as she listened to the music. 6 months ago, the collective believed they had achieved perfection. 12 species all thinking the same thoughts, following the same rules, living identical lives. They thought that was triumph. And now? Lee asked. Now we have 37 species, each one different from all the others, working together not because they have to, but because they choose to. We have former enemies making music together. We have children inventing games that serve no purpose except joy. We have people falling in love across species barriers and creating art that breaks every rule the collective ever made. She turned from the window to face her companions. The collective saw diversity as chaos that needed to be controlled. They saw individual choice as inefficiency that needed to be corrected. They saw creativity as a waste of resources that needed to be eliminated. But they were wrong, Captain Choi said. They were wrong, Dr. Park agreed. What they hailed as triumph, that perfect sterile order, we knew as destruction. The destruction of everything that makes life worth living. And what we call chaos, Lee added, they would have called disaster. But our chaos creates beauty. Our disorder produces wonder. Our inefficiency generates joy. Through the corridors of the ship, the music continued to grow and change. Each species added something new, something uniquely their own, creating a symphony that could never be repeated, because it was born from the spontaneous creativity of free minds working together. This is what we're really fighting for, Dr. Park said quietly. Not just freedom from oppression, but freedom to become whatever we choose to be. Freedom to make mistakes, to argue, to disagree, to create things that serve no purpose except to make us happy. Freedom to be beautifully, wonderfully, imperfectly ourselves, Captain Choi concluded. Outside the ship, the stars shone with the light of 1,000 worlds, each one now free to write its own story among the cosmos. And in that light, the future stretched out before them, uncertain, chaotic, and full of infinite possibilities. Dr. Park opened her personal log and began to write. Today marks 6 months since humanity chose to remain human. In that time, we have learned that our greatest strength was never our technology or our weapons. It was our stubborn refusal to become anything other than gloriously, chaotically, imperfectly ourselves. What they hailed as triumph, we knew as destruction. And in knowing that difference, we didn't just save ourselves, we saved the galaxy itself. The Free Species Alliance now includes 37 different civilizations, each one unique, each one free. We argue, we disagree, we make mistakes, and we create wonders that no perfect system could ever produce. We are proof that diversity is not weakness but strength, that chaos is not disaster but opportunity, that freedom is not inefficiency but the source of all true progress. The galaxy is no longer silent with the uniformity of the collective. It rings with the voices of free beings choosing their own destinies. And in that beautiful noise, we hear the sound of a universe that is finally, truly alive.